under the influence of Sharia. Ignorance apparently is an excuse. A recent Newcastle grooming gang, one of them was let off with a community order for raping children. He raped children. He too was let off. Just like the two-tier policing, we have a politicised two-tier judiciary, where the law is not actually the law. The law is whatever the judge decides it is based on who's sitting in front of him. And perhaps most galling for me, personally,
what are you feeling about the verdict?
Suck your mum's fat.
You've got no guilt. Is there any guilt? Is there any guilt, mate? Is there any guilt?
Back in 2018, I was imprisoned for reporting outside Leeds Crown Court at the end of a trial of now convicted child rapists. Watch this.
We grant the extension of time in respect of the finding of contempt in Leeds Crown Court and allow the appeal against that finding for the detailed reasons set out in the judgment, essentially because the process was flawed.
That's right. It was found to be an unlawful imprisonment.
What is the matter? I should be Matthew Edson.
I face a contempt charge, for doing exactly what you just done to me now.
Exactly identical to what you just done to me.
Clearly, I
No, exactly. I'm being prosecuted by exactly what you've just done. I'm facing charge.
I still spent 3 months on solitary confinement before being released. So the public had seen them falsely imprisoned me, so they had to get me. They took me back to the Old Bailey twice and eventually convicted me again on contempt of court, which I did not commit, by the way. And they gave me another 10 months in prison. So 13 months and then 10 months for asking now convicted paedophiles, how do you feel about your sentence?
What's the difference between what I did and what you did?
You've now been found in contempt of court. You lost your chance to be an MEP. Do you think the myth of Tommy Robinson has just been birthed now?
You don't care, do you? You don't care that people's freedoms have been taken away. You don't care that a judicial system has just prosecuted someone because of who they are, not what they've done. You don't care, do you? You're a journalist. Do you not care about people's freedoms to report?
What do you get for contempt of court? The Daily Mail, the Daily Mirror actually capped the trial of Levi Belfield for the rape and murder of the child Millie Dowd. Contempt of court, saying they were fined. Rod Liddell, whilst writing for The Spectator, he actually clapped the Stephen Lawrence murder trial.
The Spectator magazine is being prosecuted for breaching reporting restrictions during the trial of Stephen Lawrence's killers. Gary Dobson and David Norris were described as disgusting racists in an article written by Rod Liddell while the Old Bailey trial was underway. The magazine is accused of breaching a court order preventing prejudicial material being published before jurors reached verdicts.
What was his punishment? A fine. See, we have a politicised judiciary.
We have spent £115,000 so far fighting this case. We have received no legal aid. The Muslim paedophiles from the Rochdale grooming case were given £1 million of our money to fight that case. The court ordered that those paedophiles would be deported when they're released from prison. Those paedophiles are still lurking around the streets of our country.
I bring it back to my arrest in November last year. It's important to understand the process is the punishment. I had to go to court 7 times, and every time I had to go, it cost me thousands of pounds. My freedom was taken. My ability to work was taken from me. The cost was £60,000. And what was the outcome? The arrest was unlawful. The bail conditions were unlawful. The entire thing was unlawful. Police officers lied in their statements, fabricated paperwork. They lost all their body-worn video footage. That's right, every police officer you see with a body cam on, they all lost it. The dog ate my homework, Your Honour. So have we won? Or have they won? They physically attacked me, they pepper sprayed me, they banned me from my capital city for 6 months. They financially bleed me.
The point I want people to understand is I've just said I've won, yeah? Have we won? Do we have freedom? For the last 6 months, I've been banned from entering my capital city, whilst jihadists have took over our capital city week in, week out, with the grace of the police allowing them to. I've had my restrictions, my right to a family life, I even went to court to ask if I could take my children to the Christmas lights turn on, and I was refused that opportunity. For the last 6 months, I've had to go to a Muslim police officer and ask permission to come into my own capital city, of which one of the meetings was to interview a member of parliament. That Muslim police officer refused that request. That is a police state. That is not freedom. What's been ruled on is that the arrest was unlawful, pepper spraying was unlawful. They arrested me on my daughter's birthday. Yeah? On my daughter's birthday, that's now unlawful. Their bail conditions are unlawful. This is about lawfare. The process is the punishment.
Our eyes have been opened because of the internet age. We can see precisely what's going on before they spin it. And then we can compare the narratives of the true events that we saw with our own eyes versus what they want us to believe.
And there's always more rules. Rules that superficially sound reasonable enough. Non-crime hate speech. No one wants hate, right? But those rules are simply weaponised to silence people again. And the people with the wrong kind of views.
In Russia last year, 400 people were arrested for things that they said on social media. 400 people in Russia. Obviously this country is very different. How many people do you think were arrested in Britain for things they said on social media last year?
Go on.
Take a guess.
I've no idea.
3,300.
Oh, really? Arrested for what they said on social media.
Much of this current obsession by the police with what we say and think, even in the privacy of our own homes, even on social media, even as banter amongst friends, is based on this thing called the Allport scale. Now, the Allport scale was written by a psychologist in the 1950s to show where genocide comes from. And he has a 5-step program, if you like, which begins with contrary speech. So, if you, as I did, retweeted somebody else's limerick, and the political content of that limerick was anti-trans, as it was when I retweeted somebody's limerick in 2019, the logic of the police is this, that is the first step on a 5-step program that ends in genocide. They say that without necessary intervention at step 1, you will move to step 2, which is indirect discrimination against people of the group. And then, if it's not stopped there, it will move to step 3, which is direct discrimination. And then step 4, which is violence. And finally, step 5, which is terrorism, genocide, and murder. That's the police logic. And that's why they are so obsessed by what you think and say, even in the privacy of your own home.
Of course, they can justify their action, silencing people, by telling us they are protecting due process or protecting us from misinformation. As Robert Kennedy says, there is no time in history when the people censoring speech were the good guys. And he points out, a government that has the capacity to silence its opponents has the power to commit any kind of atrocity. And when they want to, they just create more legislation, like the Online Safety Act brought into effect in October last year. It's always for our own good. The benevolent government protecting society from the extremists. That's how they sell it to you.
So what is the future of journalism in the UK? It's increased censorship. The Online Safety Bill censors online content, and with the police now being given free range to restrict any journalist at any moment, at any demonstration, I think this will curtail and stop the freedom of the press.
But there are some problems here. The new online safety legislation, it can be weaponised by anyone. Literally anyone can claim they're alarmed or distressed and use the law to silence ideas they can't cope with. The drag queens, men who get sexually aroused by dressing up as a woman and reading to your primary school children. The Muslims who don't want Islam to be scrutinised by people who think Islam might not be such a great idea for rape. Any woman who doesn't think a man can become a woman by just wishing. And if you want to see how much distress you can cause Generation Z, by simply saying there's 2 genders. It's clear every new piece of legislation presented for your good, the good of the people, results in more power for the government and is then weaponised by the government and those who hate our nation and our values. It leaves each of us with less and less freedom.
It should go without saying that this is an optimistic future, and if we continue going as we're going, independent voices will be snuffed out.